And let me share my screen. All right, so can everybody see that? I can't see the chat box now. All right, great. All right, we're gonna get going. For those that I do not know personally, my name's Scott Quimby from Computer Systems Integrators. I've been doing this, I think, since the beginning of time. Started when I was 17. I remember March 1980, sitting in Moscone Center in San Francisco with Steve Wozniak sitting in the chair to my right and Steve Jobs sitting in front of me, talking to me, and it's been a wild ride ever since. What we're doing here this morning is we're going to talk about an intro to group policy. This is an introduction. This is not going to be the gruesome internals. In putting this together, I've probably done about 20 presentations on this since about 2004 or so. We do 4 times a year. We have our Tech Talk, or for Dutchess County Schools, the SysOp meeting, where we delve into these things in more depth. So we have one coming up in a couple weeks. We're still getting some audio here. I don't know why. Yeah, if you could just mute your phones, because I said mute, and obviously that's not working, just to keep the noise down. Thank you. Basically what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of delve into some of the basics of group policy, and then we're going to answer any questions you have. If you do have questions, like I said, please mute your phone and just type them into the chat box, and Lisa is taking a look at that. So here we go. Group policy. It's a central management system for certain aspects of a computer and user experience. Group policies can control things like the visual thing. I don't want a screensaver. I don't want you to right-click. I want you to have a certain wallpaper. I don't want you to be able to have the Budweiser homepage as a wallpaper. I want you to basically not be able to wander the network. I want a specific home directory, a specific start menu, a specific desktop experience. So some of that is a visual experience, some of that is security, some of that is functional. And the object is, you know, most of us here on the call have hundreds, if not thousands of machines, and we're trying to create a consistent experience in terms of how we approach this maintaining the machines. So, you know, other things we can do: control where Windows updates come from, set the firewall rules, passwords, complexity, lockout, login scripts, logout scripts, printers, services that are running or not running. Internet Explorer, though that's gotten harder to do in recent years. Firefox, Chrome, some Adobe is not on the list, but that's another one that we can control the personality of. Microsoft Office, what happens when you start Office. We can use it to install some software. MSIs, we can say you can only run the things I tell you to, or you can run whatever you want except the things I don't want you to. Which is becoming more important as we get into ransomware, for instance. So group policy is something I want to happen. I may or may not allow you to have a say. So there's things I say, absolutely, it's my way, or just, you know, that's all you get. There's some things that I'm going to say, I don't really care, right? And we can decide those things. There's this other thing we're going to talk about called the group policy preference. That's something I would prefer to happen, but you can always take another position. So you think, hey, I want Microsoft Office to start a certain way, or Internet Explorer to start a certain way. But after I start you the way that I prefer, I'm not opposed to you doing something else. That's a preference. Where a policy says, you know what, the home page of Internet Explorer and Chrome and Firefox is the district home page. That's just the way it is. So that's kind of the difference between a policy and a preference. There's a term Microsoft uses called tattooing. And tattooing means I've changed something and it remains changed whether I change my mind or not. If I say, never mind, I don't care about this setting, it's still changed. That's a tattoo. It's essentially a permanent change. There's another type of change where I can say, I want you to do something, but then if I change my mind, I just say, never mind, and it basically goes away. So we can do those two, either the tattoo, here, do this, and it's there. Now I'm going to walk away. I have what I want, versus do this until I change my mind, in which case I'm going to take it out. A group policy object is an individual policy that does something, and we'll get into that before. So we have these objects that say don't right-click, or here's how I want a shortcut to appear on the desktop to run Chrome or what have you. This is all run through something called the Group Policy Management Console, GPMC, and that's the preferred way of centrally managing that. That can be run on a server, or it can be run on a workstation. So those of you, you could install the remote server admin tools on your workstation Windows 7 or higher, and then you can install the Group Policy Management Console and run that actually from your desktop as opposed to remoting into a server, but either way. If you want to do group policies locally, just pick a workstation you want to do something, the command is gpedit.msc. It's just for a workstation versus for the network. Our favorite command in terms of once we make changes is gpupdate or gpupdate/force. And that basically group policy update. And that's telling the servers or workstations to force their policies to the latest version. When you do a force, it may or may not require a server or workstation reboot to get there. Generally, forces require reboots. In Windows Active Directory, the way we can apply policies, we have these things called sites, and the site might be the high school, the middle school, the individual elementary school. So we could apply a policy at a site level in corporate America, London, LA, New York. Then we apply it at the domain level, which is what most of you come in at. And then we can do it as an organization level. So in my example here, I could say I'm going to apply a policy to all the students in my Active Directory. And then we can apply policies locally to the computer. By default, the order of precedence is set by the higher in the policy, right? So if there's a domain policy, it's more important than a OU policy, which is more important than a workstation policy. I show you on the next screen, I believe, that. So basically, the rule is the last one in wins. So, you do something on your workstation, okay. If I take a position at the site level or the domain level, which most of you would be at the domain level, then I override the local policy. If I don't take a position at the domain level, then whatever you did at the local level can apply. Policies generally come down on login or reboot. Some are dynamic, okay? So generally, most of the user policies on the user side are dynamic, and most of the computer policies on the computer side are static. Historically, drive mappings were static, but starting with Windows 8.1, GPPE, those preference drive mappings are dynamic. So you can actually, in Windows 8.1 or higher, you can actually map a drive via GPPE, and it'll show up to an active user session without a reboot or logout, login. Some home directories only happen on login. When in doubt, reboot. If you're trying to tweak something that's a user-side setting, for instance, can you right-click the mouse on the desktop? You could do a GP update on the workstation, and that should dynamically come down right then if you're talking to where you edited it and do it. Sometimes it gets rather maddening with group policy because you make a change and you're waiting for the change to come down, so you don't know, did I do it right? Did I basically mess it up? And so one thing you got to remember is patience. Now, Windows domain rules. You edit policies on a domain controller, and then they replicate from controller to controller. You can control the replication time between your domain controllers. The shortest time you can have is 15 minutes. Sometimes you see some that are set to an hour. This gets, if you have multiple DCs, multiple buildings, what have you, this gets to a situation where you made a change and you got somebody waiting for this change and you're waiting for replication. If you play out all the different formulas in Microsoft, it could take as long as 90 minutes to get a policy out to the furthest end of your network that's a computer-side policy. Login scripts tend to be immediate or next login. One thing I would suggest to you is if you're sitting there and you're in the elementary school and you're trying to create a shortcut and test it at the elementary school, then go to the domain controller that runs the elementary school, whatever that might be, and edit it there, because that should be immediate. Whereas if I go across town to the high school domain controller and edit it there, then I'm waiting for all this replication to go on. So that's where people, especially people who came from Novell, where you were used to instantaneous changes, that's where they get jammed up, because they don't know, did I do it wrong? Is there something wrong? But in Active Directory, it's at least 15 minutes away, and it could be as long as 90 minutes away, depending. So the rule generally is go as close as possible to the end user. If you're trying to do it real time, what domain controller does the end user talk to? Go there and make your edits. All right, we have a couple group policy states, right? Not configured. That's the default. I take no position. That means anyone underneath us, at the workstation level can take a position, right? So I don't care what you do. And, so you decide you want to do something and you can figure out how to set it, set it. You decide you don't want to do something, unset it. I'm not taking a position. And lower down the tree, that's what's going on. Enabled. Enabled means I'm taking a position. We do care and we want this done. So I'm going to say you can't right-click because I don't want you to right-click. I'm going to say no control panel because I don't want you to have the control panel. Now, users down the line may or may not be able to override the policy, right? So I'm saying this is what I want, but I still may leave the door open for something else to happen downstream. Disabled, we do care and we don't want this done, right? Do I want you to be able to change the screensaver password? No. All right. I do care and I just don't want this done. Again, users may be able to take a position. Enforced. Enforced. Can you guys just please mute your phone? Everybody, thank you. Just to keep the noise down because the mute function isn't working on WebEx. I don't know why. Thank you. Enforced, not enforced, is basically downstream. Maybe you could take a different position. But enforced basically says, I do care and it's my way. So I want this setting. I do not want you to right click. You do not have a choice in this matter. No one downstream of me can essentially change this setting. So this is, I feel strongly that this is not an optional thing. That's enforced. Block inheritance. Block inheritance says that for whatever reason, I don't want all this other stuff to be happening down here. So, you know, we have all this stuff that's going on for the school district, but I don't want the district office OU to have this stuff going on. I want to block it, all right, because I want to do something different. I want a different password policy. I want a different screensaver, whatever it is. That's called block inheritance. And what you see in block inheritance here, you see this little teeny blue exclamation point, and that's block inheritance. And so that basically says it's my way above, but at this level, we're going to do something new. Now, the thing you have to realize about block inheritance is block means block, which means that you would then start over and you would selectively put the policies that you did want underneath the block. So when we block everything, and then we just essentially pick the ones that we actually still want. Do you want the drive mappings? Well, then put it in, and the like. But that's what block means. It means I want to do something different. So, for instance, in a VDI environment, we tend to block that OU and start over. And a lot of people want the district office block because they want something else done in a school setting. So that's block. Now, if you enforce and block, now you have this kind of opposing wills. Enforce trumps block. Right? So if I enforce something above, I can force it through a block because, again, I'm the admin. I have the keys to everything. I can do what I want. Also, if I enforce in a block, it creates all sorts of errors in the error log showing that you're basically fighting it out. So generally, since the only person, if you've enabled something, the only person that's going to manage this is an admin person, you generally don't need to enforce if because no one could change your setting if they couldn't get to the console as an admin. So you generally wouldn't need to enforce, and then basically you could do a block safely and you wouldn't overrun the block. Now, we can control group policies. We can have the rights of who's allowed to change the policies. We can filter. So, for instance, I can say all teachers get this thing, this stuff on their desktop, and control panel is locked out, and the like. But the master teacher group gets control panel and gets extra stuff on their desktop, okay? Or we're all techs, so when we come along as techs, magic things happen that make our life easier that other people would not see. All right, so we can filter it who can run it, and we can filter it by who can run the tool and manage this policy, but we can also filter it by who can see the policy. And by doing that, we can create mass customization, because like I said, that example, all teachers get this, but the super teacher gets some extra stuff that a normal teacher is not allowed. And we can do it off of one screen. There's a couple policies we really don't want you to touch, or if you have to touch very lightly. There's a policy called the default domain policy. Don't go in there and edit that if you can avoid it. Now, in the old days, that's what we did. We just went into that and put stuff in. So you go back to 2004, you're probably going to have that stuff in there. But best practice these days is the only thing we might touch in here is the password. This is where password policy starts. And if we're going to set a granular password policy, students have change their password this often, teachers this often, administrators in a different, more aggressive schedule, we'd go into that and we'd edit that out. But other than that, we don't want to touch that. The other one is there's a default domain controller policy. So we really don't want you to be aggressive in touching them. What we want you to do is essentially create new policies. And you see that here. I have different policies set up. Never move your domain controllers out of your domain controller OU. Bad things will happen to you. Your policies will break. You will be miserable. You will call us, and all your users will hate you. So keep your domain controllers in your domain controller OU and don't touch the policy. Now there's a debate as to how to do policies. One theory is we create this super policy. It just has everything we want in it, and the pros of that is it's the fastest possible policy. The cons of that is basically it's hard to remember where the heck is stuff, because what did I do, because it's all in one bucket. The other philosophy is lots of little policies. Don't do right click. Don't set power management to be disabled. Set a screensaver that goes on in 30 minutes is password protected, and have them separate. They're easy to understand when you go, where's the screensaver policy, because I don't like the timeout. You go look and say, aha, this one says screensaver, that must be screensaver. All right. The cons of a lot of little policies is they're technically slower to load. However, while technically slower, the reality is they're only really slower on the first load until it caches in memory, and it's only by a couple milliseconds. So I started out doing one big policy because everybody said it was faster, but I've kind of taken to doing either individual discrete policies and or bigger functional policies. So, these are all the policies about computer settings. These are all the policies about security settings. These are all the policies about personality settings and the like. Neither way is wrong. They're both correct. It's just a question of how easy is it to manage. I find when you have lots of people in, or maybe you have a staff churn over the years and you're trying to figure stuff out, having smaller, more discrete policies are easier for somebody to walk in and figure out. All right, if we open up a policy, there's two sides of the policy. There's a computer side, which are computer settings, set power management, set firewall, set where Windows updates come from. And then there's a user side, set the start menu, set the, can you right click, set what your wallpaper is going to be, set what drives get mapped, set what your home page is to IE. So a computer side and a user side. Again, the computer side tends to be static in terms of you have to at least log out and log in, if not reboot. The user side can be dynamic, and you can generally get those things to come down much quicker. Now, this screen is a bit of an eye chart, but I kind of opened it up as to, and anybody who's on the call will send you this slide deck. Basically, it shows all the different things. This is the computer side we can do. You can run a computer script, password policy, account lockout policy, auditing policy, things like terminal services, remote desktop rights, what level of security, how does the event log go, how big is it, when does it regenerate, if it's full, Internet Explorer, trusted sites, like for School Tool, for instance, and other things, and the like, Windows Update, time providers, the like. So there's just a ton of stuff in there. And these are all the things we can affect. The other thing in the computer side, I should say, going back, the other thing I can do is I can install software with it, software settings. It's up at the top here. I can install software and MSI. So if I don't have an SCCM or a Case or a ZenWorks or an Alteris or those type of products, and I have an MSI to install a user agent for my web filtering, I could conceivably install it through software settings. We're not going to talk about that today, but it will install it there. The downside of doing it there versus all those other tools I mentioned is there's no reporting, so we're blind. So the nice thing when we install this with Alteris or these other things, we can say, well, who got it and who didn't get it, because I need to manage the exceptions and go figure out why certain people didn't get something. In Active Directory, it's just I hope you got it, right? If I did it right, you should get it, and then you get whatever it is. So there is a software setting. The other thing we have in here is services. So I would like this service to be turned off on all workstations, or I would like to make sure this service is turned on all workstations. We can set that through group policy there. User side, again, an eye chart. The user side, basically Internet Explorer, though that has been depreciated a lot in recent years. Security features, what happens with Messenger, Windows Media Player personality, Start Menu personality, Control Panel personality, offline files, profiles, login, it's just on and on and on. All right. Now there's this other thing called GPPE, Group Policy Preference Extensions. And basically, manage settings you enforce. You don't allow people to change. Okay. This is a little bit of a rehash. And then we have preferences. We can put out registry keys, login scripts. You want the building sysop to be local admin to all the workstations in the lab. We can do that. You want to put a shortcut to School Tool on every teacher desktop wherever they sign in the district. We can do that. You want to you've pushed out a new software application and you want to put it in all the guidance counselors' desktops. We can do that. Let's skip ahead here. Drive maps. This is the preferred way to do drive mapping now. You want to make the special ed teachers local admins because their software is such a pain in the butt and changes so rapidly to go. If we look in here, again in a policy, we see these preference sections. Those are the GPPE. Basically, we're just going to open it up here and just kind of whiz by this. We can set environment variables. We can put files on a workstation, folders. We can edit registry files, any files. You say, oh, I know how to do that. You just hit the registry with this key. We can deliver it via GPPE. And we can selectively deliver it. If the machines are on this VLAN, put it in. If you're a member of the teacher group, do this. If you're on a workstation that's called Room 116, Workstation 2, do this. If you're a teacher and you're on a Windows 7 machine, do this. So we can be very, very selective as to how we do these things. You look at all the different things we can do here. The big one is going to be drive maps and shortcuts. That's like and registry keys. Those are the huge ones. All right, we're going to blow through the end of this pretty quick here because we're getting through our time. One of the things that you get into is what's going on. You know, I'm walking up and I want to know what is and isn't going on, and I want to know where it's going on from. There's this tool called Group Policy Modeling Wizard, and if we look here, we're in GPMC, and there's this option called Group Policy Modeling Wizard. And so often people say, oh, this doesn't go on, or this does go on. And do you want to get on people's machine? And I generally would say no. What I want to do first is run GPMC and see what I can see. And then once I run GPMC and this modeling wizard and see what is and isn't going on, I may already know the answer, or I may want to go on the machine because I'm confused. All right, so we're going to go in here. We're just going to right-click and say Run the Modeling Wizard. Bam. Keep going. Show the domain controllers. If I'm concerned that something weird is going on, I can select a specific domain controller, right? So if I say, hey, you know, people in this building have a weird experience, I can select a domain controller. Then I point to a user, and I point to a computer, and then I can search for the users and computers, which is advisable. Do the search to find it. And then I can pick a site if I'm using sites and services. Pick a site, so you're in the elementary school, whatever. And I just keep on going next, 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 next. And bam, it creates a model. Now this user doesn't even ever have to have signed on the computer in question, right? This is essentially theoretical. If this user signs on this computer, this is what does and doesn't happen theoretically, all right? So they don't even have to have physically been signed on, but this will tell me what I need to know. Now, if I open this up and show, whoops, sorry about that, show the big list, what it starts to do is it starts to tell me, well, these are on the computer side, these are the policies that were applied. And if there's a replication problem, there's versions of them. And then it says this one is the one that was denied. Now it's denied because of security filter. So whatever this is, it says that it was filtered out based on security. All right. And these are the groups that the computer belongs to, and then I do a show all, and then it open up, and it shows me, here's the policy, here's the setting, and here's where it came from. So if I say, I don't like the fact that basically, what's a good one? I don't like the fact that users get locked out in 15 minutes with 5 invalid attempts. I can change that, and the question is, where did it come from? I just run the model, and I find the setting I want in the list, and then I just go to the place in question and edit it. So, you know, here's home directory paths, here's login scripts, basically where does desktops come from, where do my documents go, where do pictures go, blah, blah, blah. You can just go through and see actually everything that's going on. Now, I can rerun this query. I can run a query based on this query to look at other things. But I find this invaluable in terms of trying to figure it out. Where did this come from? I don't like the screensaver timeout value. Where did it come from? I run the model, and then I see what the policy is. Then I go back to the list and I edit the policy. All right. Some best practices as we kind of wrap this up. Refrain from editing the default domain policy except for password settings. If you want to do granular, more and more if you want to do different password policies for different classes of users. Administrators, guidance counselors are more rigid, teachers are in between, students are more liberal. We have to edit at least that part. Basically, don't move domain controllers out of the domain controller OU. We said that. One I didn't say before is make a separate computer OU for computers. I can't put a policy for computers against the default computer OU. It's very strange. I have to put my computers in another OU if I want to do it. It's kind of an odd thing for Microsoft. Things I want done. Eliminate all batch files and VB scripts from login scripts. Use GPPE for all drive mappings. Eliminate any dead persistent mappings. You get these things where people say, oh, the login is so slow and it's a black screen that lasted for 30 minutes. It's really only 10 minutes. But what that's telling you is it's telling you that there's a drive that's mapped that they don't have rights to, and Microsoft's just sitting there until it times out. So we want to get rid of all that stuff. Eliminate all shared desktops and shared start menus. This was really popular forever for us because it was an easy way to do things, but instead we want to use GPPE shortcuts to do it. And the amount of time, you're going to save at least 40 seconds on login time if you do that step. Oops, sorry. Not done with that page. Run computer-side GPOs against computers, not users. Run user-side GPOs against users, not computers. Now, if you put your computers in your own computer GPO or building computer GPOs, you could easily do that. But yeah, we want to try to get these things as close to the people or devices we care about. There's some starter GPOs that I would have. The default password expiration is 42 days. You probably want something different. If you do roaming profiles, which Microsoft really doesn't like them anymore, and we're kind of down on them, it's immensely useful from a management standpoint to add the policy that says add administrators to roaming profiles. That allows you to actually go into the roaming profile. Run login scripts synchronously. People don't think about this, but Microsoft would rather be fast than write, and the default for Windows XP and higher is asynchronous login. And the philosophy is if you're sitting at your desk and you're at Exxon, and it's your desk and you never move, well, everything will eventually get to you and it'll work out great. But if you're a highly transient user, as we have in our schools with teachers and students, we really don't have another shot other than that first logon, right? So we need it to be correct. So we want to run the login script synchronously. Microsoft says one of the last things in an asynchronous login to get right is home directory drive mappings, and we kind of like home directories to be there. So we want that setting set. Always wait for the network at computer startup and log on. Again, it would rather be fast than right. We want it to be right because we may not have another shot. The other one that's really annoying is don't resolve shortcuts, and that's the one where, you know, it can't find the shortcut, so it goes off to try to look for something. Well, that always ends badly. So those are kind of some base ones we always like to start with. The other thing we want to do is use a central policy store. That's a whole nother presentation entirely. But that's where we take all these policies, the Firefox policy, the Adobe policy, the Chrome policy, the Microsoft Office 2007, well, back to 2003, 2007, 2010, 2013, 2016, and put it up there for open save to drive H and full menus and all those things. But we really want a central policy store. Um, so we're kind of getting to the end. Other things I didn't talk about, other topics, mandatory profiles, kind of making a starter profile, pulling that down for you. Group policy, creating a central policy store. How do you set it up? EXE run lists, loopback policy. That's the kind of where, this is kind of a generic machine, and so all the users can kind of have the same settings, and they don't have to take the time to load unique settings for them because they're not really unique, like a kiosk. Citrix uses that a lot. How do I update these templates to get the latest setting? I have Office 2016. How do I get that in the mix so I can do it? Group policy link order. If all of them are at the same level, how do I say this one comes before that one? Group policy filtering. How do I do teachers versus super teacher? GPPE, there's all sorts of things in terms of conditional logic and registry keys. And the other one is GP result. And that's the one where we did group policy modeling wizard, and that was the theoretical. But what if the theoretical didn't really happen, right? So you said that this was supposed to run, but it doesn't run. GP result, you could actually go to the machine with the user, and you can run that and say what actually did run explicitly for this user on this machine or didn't run. So those are some other topics. Now, these are all topics that I've been talking about at our Tech Talk meetings and the BOCES, Dutchess BOCES, if you're in Dutchess County, the CISOP meetings, to break those things out. I know I'm going to, in the next one coming up a few weeks, and you can talk to Lisa about it, I know I'm going to talk about EXE run lists, and I'm going to do some stuff on performance on things like GPP drive mappings and the like. I have some interesting performance data, so I know I'm going to talk about those two topics in a couple weeks. But yeah, so you're welcome to come to our meetings. I know we're gonna we're gonna try for another webinar in July. Is that? Yeah, if people are interested, we'll do that in July, since next month we're doing the live thing. Lisa's going to send out an email for survey. We'll send you the slide deck. Do people have questions, or anybody have any questions that they'd like to answer? You can shoot them in the text box in the chat window. So we don't have any Jeopardy music here. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. This was kind of a fast run through of what is going on. And like I said, I'm gonna if we go back to this list, I'm going to talk about the EXE, and I'm going to talk about some performance data in a couple weeks from now. So we thank you for attending, and have a great day.